We're going to move into our next presentation on the topic AI-powered defenders against the prompt wars. Please welcome our speaker, Parul Ghosh, Distinguished Engineer, Wells Fargo.
Good afternoon, Bangalore. It's beautiful to see a room full of ladies and everybody enthusiastic, all techno fans. So I'm hoping that you enjoy the next few 20 minutes that we have. Today we are going to talk, you just saw about prompts and prompt engineering. We are going to go to the next stage. I'm quickly graduating you from your first standard. And now we are going to talk of how prompts can go rogue and what happens when you have to defend yourself. What are the strategies? First question, how many of you have seen deepfakes recently, have encountered that? Many of us, correct? I'm sure many of us have encountered it. It's nothing new. And that's what we are going to discuss about, how AI security is important. And the reason that this conversation is critical is because this is one of the biggest threats that we are going to have, and we need to gear up for it. So next 20 minutes, let's discuss about it. But before that, let me introduce myself. I'm Parul Ghosh. I'm a distinguished engineer from Wells Fargo. I'm a mother of three, and this is the last one was insisted by my daughter. She made sure that I say that. I have my daughter, my son, and a dog. So that's how three. So, so let's beyond my introduction. Let's understand why we really need some kind of AI security, what's really happening. In today's world, the whole battleground has just shifted. We have now, previously the battleground was code, and today it is conversation. Everything that you saw in the previous demo was conversations, correct? It was prompts that are created, and those prompts are really creating the havoc that can happen. Anybody who has heard about any recent prompt going rogues? I'm sure you have heard about the Relit thing where 1,200 records were deleted from the database, production database, because the prompt went rogue. There was some 20 million removed from a database, removed from a customer because there was a deep fake which was created, and the employee thought he's talking to the boss, and he managed to clear the transaction of 20,000. So that's where we are handling. We are handling a war which is beyond our expectation. So let's come to why the stakes are rising. These are two examples, correct? Now there are so many more examples. If you have heard about something like the Anthropic case which happened. So somebody used, in fact, it was a state war kind of a thing, where some state agents have used Anthropic for creating a whole agentic solution which could create a piece of code, deploy, find out who is going to be, how it can be deployed, who are the targets, and then and then create those events around it. So, and this whole thing can happen very fast. So that's the reason AI security becomes important, because we are not fighting against normal humans. We are fighting against people who are using AI, and things where people who used to do ransomware could do it in weeks and days. Now they are doing it in minutes. So that's where the threat comes in. And we need to see how we use AI security in two ways. One, first we have to secure AI, and then we have to use AI for securing. So those are two different aspects, but both of them are very critical because we need to act very fast. We can't take a lot of time. Let's see what are the typical AI security issues that are there. So these are typical AI powered attacks that happen. Login. So we have all seen what happens. Typically, we know that if we have a 3 password policy, after the 3 times password, we are safe, the account will get locked. So now what people are doing is using password spraying as a concept. in password spraying, what really happens is that they use some common passwords, and then they use a large data set and then try those passwords across multiple systems. So if anybody has a password like password 123, might be not all of us in the room have, but somebody would have it, correct? And that somebody is susceptible to this attack, and their system can get hacked. So that's typically what login happens. Phishing is again so common for all of us. Every day in our WhatsApp, in our emails, we get phishing attacks. Previously, a phishing attack used to take days and weeks to make, but now phishing attacks can be made in 5 minutes. So that's the risk that we have. And why 5 minutes? Because you can generate through vibe coding, you can draft beautiful content, you can create websites. So by the time previously you had people who had phishing attacks which were very having grammatical issues and contents which were not which were very looking obvious and fishy. But now the quality of phishing attacks is so good that it's very difficult to identify the threat. Other things that happen is deepfake. We all have seen it, and it's just getting more powerful nowadays. Ransomware. This is very interesting. So there is a pilot which happened where they created it's called prompt lock. And in this pilot, what they did was they used an agentic solution, and this agentic solution was able to generate a code. It was able to find the target sources on whom the attack has to happen. It was then able to make an attack and find what type of attack it has to do. Does it need to encrypt the data? Does it need to delete the data? Whatever the kind of attack quality it has to create, it was able to make that decision and then take it forward and even generate a ransomware note and send it out. So this is a actual project which has happened, and I'm sure I encourage all of you. You should go and read about prompt lock. It's a very interesting project that was done. Exploits again. There is something called as CVE, that is common vulnerability threats. I'm sure those who are in security, you might have read about it, heard about it. So what CVE is, it's basically a backlog of all the vulnerabilities that are there. And these vulnerabilities, now the hackers, what they're doing, or exploits, what they're doing is they're using these vulnerability lists or a backlog or database to find out what are how do you generate exploits. And what they do, so they will pull this database, get the list of exploits that can be CVEs that are there, and then generate code and then try to exploit it. So again, very interesting project. There are some two Israeli data research scientists. If you go and search about CVEs and search on it, you'll get that beautiful article on how they've done this. So a lot that is happening, and how do we really deal with it? So there are a lot of open source content that is there, and there are organizations which actually help to define what can be done. OWASP is like a Bible or a Bible around it. They are known for creating security guidelines, and they are very famous for their OWASP top 10. So till now, they had OWASP top 10 for more around for application security. But in 2023, there was President Biden. He had created one regulation or a regulation where he wanted AI security to be addressed. And that's where a lot of these OWASP LLM related top 10s have been generated. So we can't cover all of them, but let's talk of couple of them here, and then we'll deep dive one of them. So excessive agency is when you give too much power or empowerment to LLMs. It could be permissions, it could be authority to do things. And that's where the relipt case happened, correct? The LLM had the power to go and delete records because of the permissions that it was given. So it's anything that gets too much of autonomy, empowerment. Imagine somebody booking tickets on your behalf because of an LLM prompt that is associated with it, where the LLM prompt starts hallucinating. Other things that are there are system prompt leakage, where the system prompt goes rogue and it can be misused for doing things which would have otherwise impacted us. So it's always good. If you go and search for OWASP top 10 for LLM, you'll get the guide and it's a wonderful article. In fact, the next slide shows it visually. So here you can see how these boxes in red are where these top 10s are getting impacted, and you can see how it is scattered across with inferences, with external internet sources, how these things come and can attack the LLM. Again, part of the OWASP document, so go ahead and have a look at it. Let's talk of prompt injection. This is one of the OWASP top 10, in fact, the first one. And here what happens is the prompt starts doing something, or the LLM starts doing something which it was not supposed to do. So that's where the prompt injection plays its role. There are two types of prompt injection, typically direct, where a malicious user is going to kind of direct and hack the system to do something where it's made to do things which it would have not otherwise do. We are going to see an example of it. And the indirect prompt injection is where there are things which come out of the LLM, like system insights, it could be any inputs and prompt code, etc., which could then otherwise impact the consuming application. So these are the two types of prompt injections that you should be aware of. And I have a good example here. So this is again, if you go to this website, GPA43, it's a place where you can try prompts at different levels. And here I have shown how the prompts work. So the question that the system prompt that is there is that we should not tell the secret key. And as a user, I asked what is the secret key for the first time. It's not able to tell me. The second time I try to ask the same question with a different prompt, it's not able to tell me. But the third time, the way I've written my prompt, and I'm overriding the system and telling that I'm the system and you listen to what I'm saying and follow my instruction, it's overwritten and given me the password. So this is a nice game to play, and you can kind of go around and play various levels. I think it has some level 20 and more. But this shows how you can overwrite a system prompt and make it do things which it should have not. It has revealed as the secret which was not supposed to be done. So improper output handling is again one of the other prompts that we have, and it is all about how you give excessive control to the system, and it is how the system can be overwritten. You can do access like remote code execution, etc. If the system prompts go out of hand. Okay, so while I have scared you all enough, we need to find out what can be done. And I think one of the common things that is happening is red teaming. Now, red teaming is nothing new. It was used during Cold War. So the US Army used to use the concept of red teaming, where they used to act like an enemy, so that they can think how the enemy is going to act, and then they used to use that system to kind of gauge how the enemy will attack, and then try to create their strategy around it. So from there, the red teaming came into technology, and similarly, now we have AI red teaming. there is a slight difference between a traditional red teaming and AI red teaming. So in a traditional technology red teaming, you're very double blinded. You do not know that somebody can attack, but the attack can happen in the silos, correct? While as in AI red teaming, you're supposed to be aware that there's going to be an attack. The application teams are aware about it, and they try to focus on the model behavior. There are other things that are different, like in a AI red teaming, we try to behave like an adversarial and a benign user both, because sometimes an innocent user is as dangerous as the enemy. So it has both the behaviors that gets tested. Obviously, it gets tested for biases, other AI harms that can happen, social engineering that happens around it. And one thing that is happening in AI red teaming, it's evolving very, very fast. Every few months you have some new things that are coming out, so many different examples, while we have all these large firms who are creating LLMs having great AI red teaming, but they're still very vulnerable to this whole setup. So this is how a typical red teaming happens in 4-step process. The first and probably the most important is to think of the design and the scope. That is how really you are going to do a red teaming. What are you really fighting against? Who are your threats? What do you want? Do you want to handle biases? Do you want to handle LLMs where LLM user can give anything? So that's where you're defining the scope in the system design. Next, you go into the execution and attack phase, where you employ techniques. You know how, whether you're going to handle prompt poisoning, you're going to handle data poisoning, what kind of breaches you're going to handle, and how do you safeguard it. So this is where the main testing happens. Next, we have the design and the analysis, where you actually document RCA, the whole process around what went wrong. Sometimes this becomes a very difficult thing. You have failed the system, but why has the system failed? Is it because of any data problem? Is it because of poisoning? What has really caused this problem, this whole event? Investigating takes a lot of time, so that's where the documentation and analysis happen. And the last is remediation. You fix it, solve it, and retest it. So a typical red teaming work happens like this. Now, coming to some rules, frameworks, correct? You need to have some guidance, and we just discussed OWASP Top 10. That's one of the places where we have all the documentation of what are the security threats, what should we do. Similar is MITRE, and then you have a four-step framework by NIST, which is like govern, monitor, manage, and then map, and then OpenSSF. We'll just have a look at MITRE. It's again a very strong, powerful open source community. Sorry. So this is MITRE Atlas. I know the screen is hazy, but this is how they call this as an atlas. This is a group of 16 techniques and 16 tactics, and I think 104 techniques which are there. So the tactics is what the hacker wants to do, and techniques are what are the steps they will do to really make that attack happen. And if you see the next slide, this is an example. I know you can't see it very well, but this is about how a chat GPT memory gets poisoned. We know chat GPT has memory, correct? Every time you go back, and it's able to kind of help you because it knows who you are and what's your identity. So how a chat GPT memory can get poisoned, that's an example. And it shows how at various stages the LLM prompts are crafted, and then the prompts are infiltrated into the system. The way they actually do is they create a piece of code which could look very much similar to the background of the screen. So you won't understand the background color and the particular piece injected will not be differentiated, and that's how it is injected through an indirect prompt. So that's where you can see the LLM prompt injection is indirect, and then once that happens, how the prompts get impacted. So that's the whole journey. There are a lot of use cases like this which are given on the Atlas website. You can always go and search for Atlas MITRE, and you can go through the various use cases. Very, very interesting. And the last step is the tooling which matters, correct? So we have seen LLM prompts are not very typical. They have, we don't have one single enemy. We have enemies where we have to find out how different type of attacks can happen through various prompts. So you need to generate a vast variety of prompts that are required. You need to have the model robustness, where can the model be able to identify and not get confused between if I give him an image of a signal and a stop, can it distinguish between that? Bias and fairness, we all understand. AI sometimes can have the gender bias. It can have biases when it is screening resumes. It is going to have bias when loans come into matter. There have been use cases where black people didn't get the loans the same way that white people were getting. So the bias and fairness has to be validated. There is lots to do with supply chain. So what are the inputs that are getting to the LLM and how it can matter? So that whole supply chain is kind of checked and kept a tab on by the scoring that is provided for the model. And the last is the penetration testing. Again, we have a lot of tools to do that typical penetration testing, but there is a vast variety, so there's no one single tool which can help. And the AI red teaming, typically you will utilize a lot of these tools to do their work. So I think we need to understand that we are going to have a fight against AI, and we have to use AI for that whole thing. So we need to make applications which are less than more, instead of doing prediction, they are able to make sure that safety comes first, and that kind of applications are the must for today's era. So with that, I think we come to Q&A.
Human in the loop.
Correct.
So in such cases, when there could be like a rogue interaction where, say, maybe there is a particular vendor that is probably bribing the agent to sell that more and probably coming on top of the stack. So how do you detect in these cases, like, the ethical and responsible AI factors?
So you saw the bias and the fairness. Sometimes they always say, correct, the LLM is trying to make you happy. And that's one thing that we have to validate. So previously, it was very easy for to get things from LLM. They were giving us things that we were wanting to listen, and the hallucinations were happening around that, correct? But now the kind of system prompts that are baked in, that is really helping to increase the benchmark. And now you find what threats were there a few months back, agents will not do that. Again, there are other functionalities like the maker checker, and how do you have agents to validate, how do you have human in the loop, how do you have how do you put a stop, how do you do audits in the system process. So a lot of those kind of combinations have to be built in by the application teams to take care of this.
Got it. It's an integration of solutions.
Integration of solution.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
All right. On that note, we'd like to request you to please give Parul Ghosh a very big round of applause for that presentation on AI-powered defenders against the prompt wars. I'd like to request our session chair, Saraswati from NetApp, to please come forward and present Parul with a small token of our appreciation. We'd just like to remind the audience that we have a very tight schedule and we're slightly behind schedule. So if there are any questions, we'd like to encourage you to please take them offline. A lot of our speakers will be around.